Hello, I'm Mr. Ed.
A horse is a horse, of course, and no one can talk to a horse, of course. That is, of course, unless the horse is the famous Mr. Ed. Go right to the source and ask the horse. He'll give you the answer that you endorse. He's always on a steady course. Talk to Mr. Ed.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking about the PlayStation fanbase. Hey everyone, it's the Koopa Man. Lately, as you know, I've been doing a lot of thinking about certain fandoms and how they got to be the way that they are. Fandom is a funny thing. It's like assholes. Pretty much every living thing has one, and they usually smell bad and are full of shit. But the thing about fandoms is they tend to be largely ignored by the actual fans of a thing in question, though they don't always make that easy. One fanbase that comes to mind with this attitude are fans of Sony PlayStation, or as they are derisively called, Sony Ponies. Full disclosure, my history with Sony PlayStation as a brand goes back as far as my relationship with not only with Nintendo, but video games in general. The PlayStation 1 was my first console I ever remember cognizantly receiving, along with a copy of Crash Team Racing, and I've had every main console since then till the PS4. Some of my favorite titles and franchises from the systems I remember playing as a young hatchling, all the way into a fully grown Koopa Man, are Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, Rayman 1, which I tend to lump as a PlayStation title, as I do with Tekken, Metal Gear Solid, Ratchet & Clank was an absolute banger, as is Jak and Daxter and Sly Cooper, with the latter being one of my favorite PlayStation franchises of all time. I've also played God of War, Infamous, Uncharted, Killzone, Little Big Planet, and even at least one Gran Turismo title despite not being that into car porn games. I say all this so you people understand that this is not coming from a place of hatred for Sony as a brand. Well, you may look at some of their decisions nowadays and it's kind of hard not to hate them, but I did a video on that once before already. No, this is coming from someone who has a deep love for what the PlayStation was and what it can be again, only if people demanded it. The unfortunate thing is Sony's current fan base consists of largely the aforementioned ponies. What is a Sony Pony, you may ask? Simple. Sony Ponies are the PlayStation as a brand what a flatterer is to a tyrannical ruler. They will elate and praise Sony's brand and claim that it's the highest in all the heavens, and that anyone who dares says otherwise are just foolish lowlives and heretics who are best ignored. And like a vain and narcissistic tyrant, Sony listens to the shallow flattery as if it's true and actually begins to believe it. As they continue to make mistake after mistake, they refuse to hear any genuine criticism, only more flattery, which leads them to doing stupid and or insane things like trying to use the FTC to bludgeon their competition. And we all saw how that ended. Let me read out this statement by Judge Corley in the refusal to take the FTC case against Activision Blizzard. As a game publisher, Sony PlayStation Studios is responsible for blockbuster hits like God of War, Last of Us, and Spider-Man, the vast majority of which can be played only on PlayStation. And as a purchaser of third-party games, Sony views their exclusive content as crucial to PlayStation's continued success to differentiate their platform. As a result, Sony offers far more exclusive first- and third-party titles than Xbox. Sony also enjoys an enormous competitive advantage because it can draw on the intellectual property of Sony Music, Sony TV, Sony's film library for its game development. The number of exclusive games available on PlayStation dwarfs the number available on Xbox, with 8 exclusive games on PlayStation for every one on Xbox. The dominant player, i.e. Sony, there has defined market competition using exclusives, and so that's the world we live in. Sony has often paid third-party studios to skip Xbox, either entirely or to delay a title's release on Xbox. For example, on June 22, 2023, while this trial was happening, Square Enix released Final Fantasy XVI, the latest release in their iconic Final Fantasy franchise, exclusive to PlayStation 5. Previous versions of Final Fantasy shipped on Xbox, but the reason Final Fantasy XVI is a PlayStation exclusive is because Sony paid to exclude Xbox. ZeniMax 2 was paid by Sony not to ship Deathloop or Ghostwire for Xbox, and one of their reasons that Microsoft bought ZeniMax was concerned that Sony would also arrange Starfield to go exclusive and skip Xbox. In summary, the Honorable Judge Corley told Sony in no uncertain terms that they will not play favorites, they are not one of their Sony Pony flatterers, and the fact that they were here using the United States legal system and antitrust courts to punish their competitors for something that they not only have done and will continue to do, but were also caught doing during this very trial, is an absolute disgrace, and they should be ashamed of themselves for doing so. It really speaks volumes for the kind of ego it takes to see yourself not only above the law, but as the arbiter of the law itself. Makes you think what kind of people are running Sony these days. Alright, Californians. Anyway, back to the flatterers. Diogenes has described flatterers as the most dangerous animal. Francois de la Rochefoucauld has called flattery a counterfeit money which, but for vanity, has no circulation. Edmund Burke has called the practice corrupting to the giver and to the receiver. And so Walter Raleigh has put it best when he said, and this is the longest one, so buckle up, that you must take care that you not be made a fool of flatterers, for even the wisest men are abused by these. Know therefore that flatterers are the worst kinds of traitors, for they will strengthen your imperfections, encourage you in all evils, correct you in nothing, but so shadow and paint your vices and follies, as you shall never, by their will, discern evil from good or vice from virtue. Damn! That man did not have kind things to say about flatterers. The problem with flattery, though, is usually the flatterer doesn't necessarily believe what they are saying. The thing about Sony Ponies is they not only say these things to big up their favorite console company, many of them actually genuinely do believe them as well. It goes beyond mere flattery and starts to resemble more of a cult.
Excuse me, are y'all with the cult?
We're not a cult. We're an organization that promotes love and...
Yeah, this is it.
What do I mean by a cult? Take a look at this image. For those not in the know, this man is Greg Miller. He is a game journalist and e-celebrity, and just when you thought that was bad enough to disregard literally everything this man ever says, he is also one of PlayStation's biggest and most prominent Sony Pony fanboys. You would hope a journalist would pride himself with nonpartisanship and being unbiased, but we have spoken before about the problems with game journalists, haven't we? Though this isn't necessarily about that. To a Sony Pony, their devotion to Sony supersedes all, even journalistic integrity. It is not just a fandom, it's a religion to them. And as you can see from him bitching out people who bought his brand's game on the PC, the unbelievers must be shunned. Miller's attitudes regarding the PlayStation brand are not unusual or uncommon for your run-of-the-mill Sony Pony, which is what created the name to begin with. It is a mindset of a religious fervor, the likes of which you don't see outside of a radical Islamic jihadist sect, right down to their belief that you are all born part of the religion, and all who aren't are heretics who must be cleansed from this earth. Hyperbolic? Maybe a little bit. But let me give you another example. A conversation I had on Twitter after an article was written by a game journalist for VGC News regarding a patent expert calling Sony's patents immature and childish, in which they refer to their competition as inferior. This got the goat of many a pony, and many of them decided to harass the publication and the article's author, who got involved in the conversation. I, of course, had to chime in with this reply. It seems you've made a lot of ponies angry today, good sir. Of course, then he immediately got weird about it and said he didn't want to stoop to the level of name-calling and console fanboying, which is more power to him. It's rare to see a journalist with professional standards these days, but the harassment continued nonetheless. I'm sure by now he's probably considering what I meant by calling them ponies. When they refuse to engage honestly and even go out of their way to send harassment and threats for the crime of disparaging their idol, you cannot engage with them like rational human beings. This is far from a new problem, too. If you search, you will find articles and forum posts dating back as far as 2007 and earlier. Most even make the same religious comparisons I do, such as this Destructoid article from 2009, by Jim Sterling no less, back before he got married, got cucked, and then quite literally had his balls taken away in the divorce. Funny how that worked out, ain't it? But in the end, that only leaves one question. Why? Why are Sony fanboys like this? This isn't a problem you see with other fan bases. Xbox fanboys barely even exist and seem to be the most chill and content. just using their Xboxes to play Call of Duty and Madden and just don't really give a shit. And Nintendo fanboys, as we discussed, actually despise everything Nintendo does. Even the elitism of PC fanboys isn't this bad, so why are they like this? Well, my most honest answer is, I don't know. But I did ask a few friends and the like for some theories. One suggested that the exclusivity might create a mob mentality which would have produced an echo chamber, as well as the attitude of automatically shunning those outside of the gated community as lesser. Another suggested that PlayStation lacks a brand identifier like Nintendo has Super Mario. The fanboyism is instead directed towards the company and consoles themselves, leaving little room to be loyal to anything else. Someone else suggested that Sony themselves fostered this mentality in their marketing in order to defeat the Xbox. Another idea is that the majority of what makes up ponies are the younger generations who have yet to learn any better than to behave this way. Honestly, it could be any combination of all of these theories, or none of them at all. The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, regardless of how we got here, PlayStation fans have become, or always were, extremists. And like with any group of extremists like the social justice warriors, the culture warriors, centrist TMs, console warriors, fandom menaces, or so on and so forth, they are best to be ignored. As I stated in my Future of Gaming video, the PlayStation brand doesn't really have the kind of staying power that will last in the upcoming shift from console to PC gaming as the mainstream, so once those hens come home to roost, it'll only be a matter of time. The sad thing is, if PlayStation was built with the staying power beyond spite, they wouldn't be facing this issue with their fans. Granted, that doesn't mean everything would be perfect, but we'd have a somewhat more wholesome fan base for a company with more staying power that wouldn't be on the foundation of sinking quicksand it is now. You can't build a brand on spite alone, and the PlayStation company and its fans will learn that very soon. Oh well, it is what it is. It has been the Koopa Man. Game on. Oh, hey Gonzalez. Glad to see you back. What the hell happened to you?
Don't ask questions. Don't want to talk about it. Just direct me to my Bacta tank.
I better take care of this. Good night, everybody.